Warm greetings to everyone. After listening to wonderful thoughts till now, I feel we are not just connected by screens and time zones, but we are connected with shared purpose. Since the word deal has already entered the today's conversation through Ms. Jayati's speech, I will stay with that word a little longer because my story too begins with deal, the one that stayed with me for longer than what happened that day. Last time I stood on this stage, I spoke about success. That success has an expiry date. And understanding this had taken me years. The version of success that once energized us, defined us, and drove us forward over time stopped fitting the person that we become in years. But what I did not say in my last presentation was when success expires, failure often enters. Not always dramatically, not always publicly, but deeply enough to leave a mark. For a long time, I thought failure was just a moment, a bad result, maybe a lost opportunity, a mistake that you recover from and move past. But life has taught me something more unsettling and more honest. Failure does not always end with when the event ends. It stays in memory, in identity, in the question we begin to ask ourselves afterwards. Sometimes the real impact of failure is not in what happened that day, but in what continues to live with us after that. So today I have come with failure has an afterlife. I'm sure you all did, but I'm trying to jog your memory. And I learned this from one moment in my own life that changed the way I saw myself. My relationship with failure is little complicated because I did not begin with success. In my formative professional years, I had enough failures that convinced me that life was not planning to hand over anything early or easily. However, 1991 onwards, after years of contributing, learning, and absorbing small blows, success began to stay. And once it stayed for a long time. I was growing. I built trust. I had winning opportunities. And I found my voice. And like many of you who spent enough years in success, I developed something that I am very proud of. In fact, I was very proud of those days. And that was confidence. Confidence, my friends, is a very flattering word. Arrogance, on the other hand, is confidence with very bad public relations. In 2003, I discovered that the lines between these two is thinner than I had imagined. By then, I had spent more than a decade with success. I delivered successful projects, handled large opportunities, had presenting to clients very successfully, and carrying the kind of certainty that comes from the years of things that has gone reasonably well. Then came one presentation, one large deal, and a loss. Losing the deal hurt, but that was not the part that stayed with me. What stayed with me was the feedback that came afterwards. I was told the way I came across was not confident. I was arrogant. That's not the kind of feedback which leaves quietly, isn't it? Because in my own head, I was not arrogant. I was trying to be confident. convincing, assured, and very professional. Basically, in my mind, I was delivering wisdom. Apparently, in the room, I was delivering attitude. And that shook me. Because for the first time, I had to confront a painful gap. The gap between who I thought I was and how I was being experienced. I had spent years building success, but that moment, failure showed me something success never had. That visibility is not same as self-awareness. The deal was gone. But what dented me more was my self-image. Because I realized something very humbling. Success had helped me become visible, but it had not guaranteed that I was seeing myself clearly. And as painful as that moment was, it revealed something even larger. It showed me that version of success that had brought me this far was not shaping me the right way. In my way, that moment planted a seed for another realization. When I spoke earlier on this stage a few months ago, I had said success has an expiry date. But before that language, I had faced a simpler and harder truth. Success introduced me to the world. Failure introduced me to myself. For years, success has shown me how world saw me. Failure was the first thing that made me ask, how honestly am I seeing myself? And once that question enters, trust me, it doesn't leave quietly. It follows you, it unsettles you. It asks you whether the person you have become is the person you believe yourselves to be. And that's the first afterlife of failure. Once it showed me something I could no longer unsee, it began a deeper kind of work. Because seeing yourself clearly is uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. But changing yourself consciously is even harder. That moment did not just dent my confidence, it forced me to examine it, to question it, to reshape how I am carrying the success. I had built a reputation through years of my achievement, but I had built credibility also. I had built trust and a track record that the world could recognize. My resume was written by success. But what I had to rebuild after that moment was something very private. The way I showed up as a person. Because some of you become aware, once you become aware, awareness of blind spot, you cannot pretend not to see it any longer. And if I'm honest, the hardest part of is not losing that deal. The hardest part was accepting that success had rewarded me enough to hide something from myself. I could have defended it. I could have told people that I was misunderstood. But somewhere inside, I felt that would have been an easier story, not the truth. So I did something success, success had never made me do. Never. I asked for help. I worked with a coach, not because I wanted to become more polished, but because I needed to become more aware. I had to learn the presence of not just how strongly you speak, it's how safely others can receive you. The confidence without warmth can feel like a distance. And credibility without humility, we all know it becomes ego. Trust me, the process was not glamorous because character work is very uncomfortable. Resume work is visible, character work is very private. No one applauds you for becoming more self aware. But this is where some of the most important growth happens. Success had built my track record. My character was edited by failure. And that's the thing about failure. If you let it do its work, it does not stop at self awareness. It didn't stop for me. It does not stop at character as well. Eventually, it reached my ambition. Because once failure has shown you who you are, and once it has begun reshaping you, it also changes what you can no longer chase as before. What success once made impressive, failure makes you examine. And slowly, more quietly, the question begins to change. Not how do I win, but something deeper, something more unsettling, more honest. It was, what is worth winning? That moment in 2003 did not just make me more self aware, it did not just make me more coachable, it made me more sensible. Because once I had seen the gap between the image and the impact, and once I had gone through the discomfort of changing myself, I could no longer think about success exactly the same way I was thinking earlier. Until then, winning was very simple. It felt simple. Winning a deal, earning trust, growing business, keep moving. And there is nothing wrong with that. But failure introduced me to a new question. Not just can I succeed, but who am I becoming in the process? Not just can I win this, but what does this win ask of me? That changed everything. Because some wins grow your career and some grow your ego. Some victories look impressive from the distance, but up close, they cost your peace. They cost your presence. They cost your humility. They cost your ability to see yourself clearly. And once you have learned that, ambition becomes to mature. You stop wanting only what is bigger. You start wanting what feels more real. And for that, for me, was the deepest afterlife of failure. It did not just change my behavior, it changed the question. Failure changed the question for me from how do I win to what is worth winning. When I lost that deal, I thought I was dealing with one failure. I was wrong. What I was really experiencing was the beginning of its afterlife. Because that failure did not end in that room, it continued the way I saw myself. It continued the way I had to change. It continued the way I began to think about success itself. Success introduced me to the world. Failure introduced me to myself. My resume was written by success. My character was edited by failure. And over time, failure changed the question from how do I win to what is worth winning. That's why I no longer see failure as something to hide, erase, delete, or simply get over. I see it differently now. Not as a moment that ended badly, but as one that continues to teach me. Because some failure persists even after the event is over. They stay long to tell you the truth, to reshape you as a person, to outlive the moment that caused them. And that's why I strongly believe failure has an afterlife. When failure becomes the past, it does not leave you becoming. So let's celebrate it. And maybe that's what makes failure worth celebrating, isn't it? How about you?